Hello and welcome to Playwright, a podcast about creating and sharing new ways to play. Now, your ears are not deceiving you. You're hearing a little different audio this week because I, Ryan Quintal, am your only host. That's right, H, or Ryan Heyman, is out. And that means I am here at the IGN offices in San Francisco, California. And I'm here today with the co-founder of IGN, the incomparable Peer Schneider. So I guess you can set aside the Ryan and Ryan confusion this week, or the H and Q subnames. You can simply call me Ryan, and I guess Peer is Peer. That's it.
I can be a Ryan. I can be a Ryan too.
Yeah, we usually have to have people call us by H and Q because we're both Ryan. But you can be P, I guess, or do you prefer S?
P is nice. That's what my scale calls me. It can only display 3 characters.
Oh,
and unfortunately, it cuts off Peer as P, as every arcade machine from the 80s did too.
Yeah, you can only get 3 digits in old arcade machines, huh?
Yeah, not happy about that name.
Peer, you are the co-founder of IGN.com. You are currently the, chief content officer. And how long has IGN been in existence now?
So I co-founded the company. So the actual company, IGN Entertainment, the website actually was around already in 1996 as an affiliate network. Called the Imagine Games Network. So it was all sorts of websites, including like Gaming Age, GAF. Like Gaming Age was part of the affiliate network, as was Game Sages or Game Facts and all that. So that was back in the early days.
And it was IGN64.com or was Nintendo64.com?
N64.com was the very first website that was already at the time under the Imagine Games banner, but it was later that we had to rebrand it to IGN64 because Nintendo at the time only called the N64 Nintendo 64 TM, all caps.
Oh, right.
They never used the term N64, and so people started to call it that, and we just got to this point where Nintendo said, okay, we need the name N64, and N64.com, they came to us, and it was their trademark at the time, and so we figured something out.
The notoriously litigious.
Yeah, no, they were really good. They said, hey, we understand you've built up the site equity, and why don't can we work on a system where there's a splash page and it says Nintendo this way, IGN64 this way, and they were very gracious. It was good.
So this is your first time on the show, but you've shared with me in advance a little bit of your idea. So we will start breaking into the 3 ideas this week. It starts off with you pitch the idea, and then we kind of start the clock and discuss it and add to it or change it or whatever. It's like an audio game jam. Okay. So
see, I'm not familiar with the process. So you just riff on it.
Yeah, you'll say what your idea is in its purest form, and then we spend 5 to 10 minutes kind of discussing it, see what we can really turn this thing into. Okay. So, what do you have for us this week?
Well, look, the Metroid series is one of my all-time favorite game series, and the other all-time favorite is The Legend of Zelda. Mm-hmm. And when I played games like Metroid Prime, I got a little bit of a whiff of what it would be like to have, Metroid or Super Metroid in 3D space, but it was still a fairly kind of enclosed linear experience, right? The corridors were in 3D, but the world was still very much like go here, go there. Now you've got the power to blast a hole into this wall.
Yeah. It was almost like Doom a la Metroid.
And so already at that time, I was thinking, when Metroid Prime came out, I'm like, it works. I was thinking of a third-person Metroid game set in an open world. The way that, Grand Theft Auto and Assassin's Creed and Elder Scrolls and Fallout, that same direction, going into this kind of open world where you can go into any direction and do stuff, and there is kind of like a through line or a storyline that leads you through it. So my idea was, the true open world Metroid game.
All right, well, we'll stop the clock there. Concise pitch, an open world Metroid game. All right, so now we're entering the phase where we kind of discuss and workshop the idea together. So when you're thinking about an open world Metroid game, are you thinking more in terms of a sort of a Ubisoft-esque format where there's a lot of things to do and quest markers and that sort of thing? Or are you imagining kind of a Zelda Breath of the Wild open air type experience?
It's open air, yeah.
And you had mentioned to me at one point an idea that I really loved, which was you build your ship.
Yep.
So Samus is building her craft as she moves from planet to planet to planet.
I think she should crash on the planet.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And like you've played the Metroid games. Mm-hmm. Usually you go down into a cave, you're a badass, you got your double jump and you can roll up into your morph ball and all of that. Yeah. You're a badass. Then something happens, something magical loosens all the pieces from your suit. They all go away and somehow they can be found again, right? Yes. It's it's this concept almost like one of the worst games ever made, E.T. on the Atari VCS. Assemble something to get off the planet, sure. Right? I would love it if you crash landed your ship and it was broken and you had to rebuild it, but rather than being this kind of like, but I would love for it to be a little bit more MacGyver-like. There was welding in one of the Metroid Primes, right? Like you could use motion controls with Metroid Prime 3 to weld stuff. And I would love if there were elements like that where you have to find the tools to fix certain things, then you have to find the parts, and it would be awesome if it wasn't as on the nose as find the exact engine you need, but it's more like what could work as an exhaust or like that kind of thing.
That almost brings
scavenger. She goes from bounty hunter to scavenger.
She really is right because I think that plays off of Nintendo so often wants to find like non-violent ways to express like gun combat or whatever. So like let's give her this almost No Man's Sky like mining, welding type of power. I even like the idea when I think about No Man's Sky, I think about the sort of she can go from planet to planet. Maybe she's trying to get home or whatever. Yeah. And it's on each planet you find a specific type of Metroid or resource.
Maybe you only have regular kind of subspace capability and you need, in order to jump, you need something else and it could be on a different planet and you can get to the next planet once you have restored part of your ship.
Yeah.
And again, like
the Metroid gating almost plays into you get something on World 3 and now you can go back to World 2 and get something previous. So it's almost like instead of a room that you're unlocking, it's a whole area.
Yeah, and maybe you could restore partial power to your ship where you can just go a little bit higher up in the first world that you're on, so you get to higher up places, so that it becomes, Metroid has the item gate system, right? Mm-hmm. Where certain areas are locked away behind a charge beam or like a triple beam or something. Mm-hmm. You could play with that, but as you restore the pieces of the ship, rather than your suit power, you could access new areas. That would be really cool.
I love the idea of, in third-person 3D, all the sort of anytime she became in the Morph Ball in the Prime series, it always did the third-person 3D stuff. So, like, that always felt just as good as the first-person stuff. So I can imagine the sort of puzzles and stuff you can set up with that world.
So with Metroid Prime, I remember we were the ones who actually broke the story that Metroid Prime was a first-person game, right? And I remember when we found that out, we were shocked. We're like, no, it doesn't work. Like, and then Japan hates first-person shooters. It can't be an FPS. And then we heard that it was still more like a Metroid structured game, but it was played from a first-person perspective. And then you play this game and you understand why they did it, right? They wanted a clean camera move. They wanted something that is visually distinct from the Zelda series, but they also wanted to fill a gap on the in the GameCube lineup. The GameCube, didn't have as many first-person shooters as the other machines. And now they don't have that issue anymore. It'd be great to have a third-person Metroid game, and they figured out all sorts of camera control and.
Yeah, you could still keep, because even the first-person Metroid games had that sort of lock-on type of thing, because you couldn't look up and down, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Games, which is kind of crazy to think about a first-person shooter at this point that you can't look up and down with.
They made you lock onto things and then circle strafe around. So it was a little bit like what Ocarina of Time had introduced, lock onto something. But then, you held down a button to strafe. And then the later re-releases changed that, actually.
How do you think you could bring in like classic Metroid bad guys into this format of game?
you land on this planet and it's supposed to be abandoned, and then of course it isn't. Like some jackalope was trying to regrow Metroids.
Subsurface.
And you find this facility underground, and you realize that maybe the government, maybe the very people Samus worked for, had taken some of the Metroids and were breeding them, and then of course you walk in there and you realize, oh crap, electricity went out. It's like Westworld, Jurassic Park. It's like they thought they had it under control. All these guys got out.
I like that.
And then maybe there's a little bit of the Metroid 2 Game Boy game where it's like, all right, she's getting sidetracked now. She's going to eradicate them out. She's going to have to take them out.
Right.
Or,
Now I can't leave this planet to... Oh, you could have
the baby is forgotten.
Like a planetary infestation level as you go from planet to planet of like how many Metroids you've wiped out.
And then it would be amazing if there's all this machinery, all this equipment, and obviously Metroids are very powerful creatures. Maybe the people who built the lab had machineries. Maybe they had a mech, right? And they had soldiers down there and everybody got killed, right? I always love the solitary experience in a Metroid game where there are not a lot of humans to talk to.
Yeah.
Like Metroid Prime 2 tried that and it wasn't very good.
Exactly.
But like you get down there and you find this derelict mech, and then you go, oh, these are some of the pieces I need for my ship. Or maybe you could even control the mech. And so the mech allows you access for something else that you couldn't get to before,
And that also, could bring in some of the Prime mechanics of scanning things and getting those like... What are they? The Chozo lore entries or whatever. Maybe the Chozo ventured to many, many worlds, right?
Could be. Yeah.
We're experimenting with these.
Yeah, it'd be awesome. Like part of the later Metroid games, definitely building kind of a log of the creatures. So since she is stranded on an unknown planet, maybe you could start off with her saying, "Oh, there are a bunch of creatures. I'm going to catalog them." Or
right.
Like
There's a reason to go to a new system or sector.
Yeah, you could do something like that. That'd be really interesting. And get rewards, obviously some sort of reward mechanism, whether it's your trophy system for scanning 100 enemies or something like that, where you're building your logbook. But maybe also the materials in these creatures, maybe the creatures are biomechanical, maybe something happened on that planet. Maybe AI
each
evolved.
Planet, the Metroids have evolved to adapt.
And so as you scan your enemies, maybe they contain materials that you need for rebuilding parts of your ship.
Oh, and so at different points, right, you need to like go back and harvest. I needed the World 1 guys to fuel this particular engine.
Maybe you can, take in a cue from survival games. Maybe you can build yourself a new type of scanner that lets you detect enemies that contain whatever,
right,
whatever unobtainium you need.
Building survival is so funny because survival is so core to what each Metroid ends up being about, right? She's alone, she's isolated, she's trying to escape, but they haven't really gone into the survival game genre with Metroid before.
They have not. No, you're right. I mean, Breath of the Wild really was the first time for Nintendo to do that, for like their core franchises. Obviously, there's no Mario survival game either, unless you count
we've never
pulling
seen Samus
turnips
eat
out of the ground.
we need some cooking.
I was thinking, be an awesome element of the part of survival would be. You've seen the movie Pitch Black, right?
Oh yeah,
yeah. Like one of the. I'm actually a sucker for the Fast and the Furious franchise. I really like them.
Okay.
I did not like Riddick, the sequel, but I thought Pitch Black was really cool.
It's a great movie.
And I just love that concept of stay out of the dark, stay out of the shadows. When the sun's gone, you're screwed.
Yeah.
And what if the planet had a day-night cycle? And like at night, these like super powerful creatures are out, and so you have to figure out how to hide at night.
And you need to be using different types of visors you manufacture and that sort of stuff.
Until you get to be a badass.
Right.
Now, the Metroid games have had, like, for example, there was your Dark Samus counterpart, and where you were being hunted and you had to hide. So they had some of the kind of stealth and survival elements like that. Just not the craft something, build up camp, But that'd be really cool if she's got like a aluminum foil tent,
with that sort of thermal material.
Take a cue from The Martian for some of that. The Martian, by the way, the book as well as the movie has those elements where it's like you need to solve how do you get off the planet.
Right.
Oh, there's this crashed. There's this
old probe or something.
An old probe,
satellite,
and you need to get it back online. Like that kind of stuff is super exciting, I think.
My favorite part about this, and we're coming up against time, is we might find out which Metroids are edible. Which
well,
could
not
be
the green
gross.
ones. They're not ripe. Yeah.
And this will give us some good new amiibos as well. So, as tradition on the show, when we end the time, and we'll call it here, we have to title the game. So you have to give it a pending title.
Metroid, Samus Lives.
Ooh, dark.
I don't know.
Brooding.
I didn't know we had to come up with a name.
Samus Lives is good.
Samus Lives is good, right?
Yeah. Because we can, maybe she goes out of contact when she crashes.
Yeah.
So they just don't
Or
know.
it's just Samus Lost.
Samus Lost.
Mm-hmm.
And then the sequel is Samus Lives.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
All right, so I want to do Ryan Heyman justice on this and try and come up with a related transition. So let's shut down the scanner on that one and get into my second pitch. In fact, the second pitch this week is from me, and here it is. Pear, I know you and I both share an affection for the Super Nintendo / Super Famicom and N64 Goemon series of games. And I want to take the Goemon series and do what Nintendo has done so well recently, which is modernizing it and almost mashing it up with some of its other marquee series, in this case, a little Mario Odyssey, which I've been playing a lot of lately, that's really great, and The Legend of Zelda, kind of like what you did with Metroid. And we'll start with the story, which is the head of the town. I don't know what you call this guy. The guy in charge of their village, whatever, is very old. He's dying. And as his last dying wish, he wants Goemon.
Oyaji is his name.
Okay,
Yeah.
Oyaji.
Yeah. They always have an Oyaji character in the Goemon games.
I'm going to give all the Japanese words to you because I can't. And he asked Goemon and his crew to put together the best play / show that he's ever seen before he's going. So it's a 3D world. You're out a la the 64 game, and you're kind of going from place to place, and the bosses are all inspired by the parts that you need to assemble this show. So you have a boss that you get lighting from, and a boss that's like the fog machine, and the stage boss, and the music boss. And so you're kind of collecting all these things, and you get tokens or whatever, so you can assemble this show. And then, pulling in from Mario Odyssey, there are also people, creative people, writers or people throughout the land that you can jump into their dreams. And when you go into their dreams, you get a Super Famicom style Goemon game where you're collecting inspiration, right? So each one of them is a dream of inspiration, and you're, at the end of the game, combining the inspiration and all the tools, the physical objects, and putting on a great show for this guy. All right, so that's my pitch. Just like before, Pear, what we're going to do next is just kind of talk about it, workshop it. Feel free to add ideas. I know you know a lot about the series and have followed it for a while, so at minimum, maybe you can help me out with some historical context to this thing. But yeah, let's discuss.
So, I mean, not that many people know the Goemon games, right? We should clarify that in the US, the Super Nintendo game came out as Legend of the Mystical Ninja.
Yes.
And in Europe as well, in a terrible translation, actually. and then later, Goemon 64, like some of those games got their title restored a little bit. But his name was actually Kid Ying. In Dr. Yang, yeah, Ebisumaru was his counterpart, and Goemon was a real character in Japanese folklore. He was a Robin Hood character, right? Okay. Ebisumaru is based on a god, Ebisu, and I remember being so mad when I played the American version and the horrible translation, and felt good when they brought it back and restored some of the more accurate silliness of the franchise. But Goemon 2, which never came out in the US, I think is probably the number 2 side-scroller on the Super NES or the Super Famicom, like after Super Mario World. It's so freaking good. And like you saying that you want dream sequences that are in 2D, that's like, I just want another 2D Goemon game from the old school Konami team. They were so good at the time. Like they did the most amazing stuff with Mode 7.
And it seemed like the reason why I want to have the 3D 2D is because I think I fell in love on the N64 with the weird locations, the snow,
Mystical Ninja 64.
Mystical Ninja 64. It felt to me, even climbing Mount Fuji or whatever, as all these great, almost miniature set piece versions of Japan, and I would like to see that coupled with, obviously blown out and expanded, but then coupled with that 2D, because I loved the 2D platforming games.
So Goemon 2 is a trip across Japan. It goes all the way to Hokkaido, to the snow, all the way to like Okinawa, the islands, and the music changes to, I gotta bring that game in. It's so good.
Yeah,
it's so good. It's 2-player as well. And for the tough parts, so you can play together as the 2 characters in the side scroll. It's super hard. Imagine like New Super Mario Brothers or Rayman
so can
Legends,
you like bounce
right?
and hit into each other?
You'll hate each other by the end of the game. But you can actually, for tricky parts, one character can take the other one piggyback.
Okay, that's very good.
But the jump button from the second player still controls the first one too, so it's super annoying.
So you both can jump.
Oh, it's so good. Yeah.
But you can't double jump, right? It's just kind of a weird overriding.
Well, but the guy on the back can jump off. So you could like basically somebody could fall into a hole and the guy on the back can still make it.
Now, what is the do the 2D games ever dabble into the sort of his expanded crew that he gets in with the Nintendo 64 games? Or I think it's like Yae and Suzuki. Yae,
this is the mechanical
the
ninja.
robot,
Correct. They're in those games. Wasn't it Sakai or something like that? I forgot what the name is. Mm-hmm. Yes, they're in the game, and the third Goemon game for the Super Famicom, which didn't come out here, was actually much more like Link to the Past.
Oh, really?
But each character had different powers. Like she had the ability to turn into a mermaid. And so she was able to traverse water and stuff. So they had those powers in those games.
I wonder if you could do 2-player in the new sort of open world Zelda style game. Like it'd probably still be shared screen or whatever, but I think you could cause some mayhem.
Well, you can do a lot of the survival games, like the more 2D survival games, let you split up, right? Mm-hmm. Like Don't Starve Together, for example. It'd be cool to do that.
I think you could bring in the piggybacking too. Not only should the 2, because that's such great. Mm-hmm. I think the 2D one should absolutely have it. But in the 3D world, like if one person is, how do you say it? Yae,
right?
Yeah.
I think.
If one person is playing as Yae and Goemon can jump on her and she can kind of take him across the water, so you have that 2-player co-op experience in the 3D world.
Sasuke, the ninja's name was Sasuke.
Sasuke.
Traditional ninja name. He's a mechanical guy. And he's got his hair can be extended. And it's so ridiculous. Goemon has a pipe. He hits people with a pipe. Right?
Exactly. Yeah. And one of the things I was thinking about is like doing, I don't know if it should be necessarily the Zelda way, but I always love collecting the lucky cats and upgrading the pipes. And if you had anything less than the best pipe, I was always like, I might as well just restart this whole level.
That's like, I went to college in Japan, and so to me, like, I just loved all those kind of random Japanese elements. Like the cat is the maneki neko. You see it in like Japanese restaurants. It's got the paw raised and like the different variants. It's like bring in money, kind of good luck statues. And like just, it had so many of those elements. It had the cats in there, and those upgraded your pipes, right?
You could place those all over the world, like Korok seeds or something that kind of give you, something in like a skill tree.
Yeah, the original games also had mini games in them where you would do, in order to make money. In the Goemon games, you would have to take on jobs, part-time jobs. You'd go into this building.
And you got to make a lot of money because you can throw money.
Yeah, that's right. One of the powers is throwing money, but you lose money when you do that. But there's a power like that in Super Mario Odyssey, by the way.
Yeah.
But so you would do a part-time job. One of them was cleaning the floor. And so you're in this almost Mario Kart style 16-bit Mode 7 environment, and there are footprints everywhere. And it's like, doop, doop, doop. And you had to run, you had to erase it. And one of the jobs was playing Gradius.
Really?
And it was like an awesome representation of Gradius.
Just a straight...
It wasn't into the game,
Really?
Yeah.
Just a Gradius inside.
I want that Konami back, man. It was so good.
Yeah, I don't know.
The Treasure Team and all those guys.
Do you remember they also could like grow big and small?
Yep.
And like...
Well, there was Goemon Impact, the big robot.
Yeah, the robot. I mean, I was thinking the robot is great for like both land traversal and an open world, but also like the final boss. Of course, you got to have the giant impact robot fight, right, where you're throwing the fists and doing the hook. Didn't you have a hook at one point?
Yeah. Yeah, if you haven't played this franchise before, it is completely wacky. You fight a nun as a boss at one point who looks exactly like your partner.
Isn't it? Is there in the N64 one like not a nude level, but like a steam bathhouse level?
Oh God, I haven't played the 64 one in such a long time.
Yeah, it's just so bizarre because that game has stuff where you're like you're platforming on soup. And, hibachi girls.
The interesting thing about that game was its development preceded Ocarina of Time. And so some of the things that they were trying to solve in Goemon 64 were the same things Nintendo was trying to solve with bringing Zelda to the third dimension.
Yeah.
So Goemon 64 actually took a lot of the elements from Link to the Past and made them 3D. There are a lot of puzzles that are exactly like Link to the Past, but done in 3D. But unfortunately, they really struggled with the hardware, and so the game doesn't run that well.
Yeah.
Because they were also building off the wrong spec, like a lot of guys back then. Castlevania 64 too.
Really?
Yeah, they all thought the hardware was way more powerful than it turned out to be.
They should have known. Classic Nintendo.
Yeah. Still a good machine.
Let's call it here. I don't have a name necessarily for this game. I was tentatively going to call it Goemon's Greatest Adventure.
Okay.
So we'll go with that.
Yeah.
All right.
You got to have some dreams things in there.
Yeah. The Great Inspiration or something.
Yeah, the dream job.
Goemon's dream job.
There you go.
That's the one. All right.
Gambari Goemon.
We're going to descend from Mount Fuji on that idea and go on to our third pitch this week, which is always from the community. Community listeners can write in at playwrightcast.com, and you can go and click on the Hey Write In or just scroll down on the homepage. Also, you can send us an email of your idea, which is playwrightcast@gmail.com. And you guys are totally the lifeblood and some of the best pitches on this show, so please keep doing that. Now let's get to this great write-in pitch from Thomas Ife. Looks like he wrote in from the website, just like you can. And Thomas writes, "Greetings, Monsieur H&Q. I'm back with another video game pitch for you." How exciting. I like the how exciting in parentheses. It's not H&Q, by the way. On this episode, it's P and Q, so mind your P's and Q's. And I'll move on. Thomas writes, "The premise, a heist game, but not as you know it. You play a bank robber, only your job is not to do the actual robbing, but to case the joint. I envisioned this part of the game to be in first person, as you explore a location, making mental notes of points of interest, a well-placed camera, a trigger-happy security guard, maybe you catch the sequence of numbers that the teller punches into the keypad. You have a limited amount of time, between 2 and 5 minutes perhaps, to memorize layouts and hazards, after which you're brought to the next stage, which changes the perspective to something like Doom's Snap Map user interface, which is kind of cool. Here, you are tasked with putting your memory to use, so placing markers on the map to indicate where things are for your fellow criminals, as they're the ones to perform the heist. The more you remember accurately, the better their chance of success. As the game progresses, notoriety comes back to haunt you, and you may be forced to talk your way out of being spotted. You might need to purchase disguises or even approach the areas from different angles, but the possibilities are endless. So, with Tom's hands-off criminal ring ready to go, let's start the clock and break this one down. What do you think, Per?
That's cool. It reminds me a little bit of how the old Rainbow Six was. The old Rainbow Six, You had to plan your mission beforehand, and then obviously GTA has a heist mission too. But I love the idea of being the guy to gather knowledge. Maybe while you're casing the joint, you also have to make sure that you're not looking too suspicious. You know,
Oh, yeah,
like
yeah,
avoid
yeah.
like if a guard starts to stare, you're like, all right, I'm gonna go over here. Like,
Right, so that sort of what game does that kind of like filling up? Is it Metal Gear that does the
well,
kind
they
of,
all do it now.
Yeah, right.
Every open world game has like the detection
Yeah,
mechanic.
like,
Yeah, like first they're like white exclamation mark, then it turns red. And,
yeah. I mean, if we're gonna go full weird on this, I also like the idea of beforehand being able to pick out your fake costume of like what you're gonna do to look incognito. And if you choose something too off-brand or something, you're going to get noticed.
Yeah.
How do you think?
Clown outfit always works.
Do you think that there is? I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, could this be a multiplayer game? Could you have like multiple people trying to case the joint and then have their, maybe it's 2 instances and whoever makes the most money is the winner of that, or if it's 2 people casing it at the same time and whoever gives the better instructions.
That's a cool multiplayer idea. It's just kind of like you're both on the same clock to case and decide, and then you see the 2 heists playing out side by side.
Right,
and you go like, oh no, you idiot. You forgot the camera. They got detected.
Oh man.
Escape with less money. Yeah, that'd be really cool.
I like the idea Thomas wrote in about the more accurately you remember things. So I can imagine a system where, like, it maybe based on the accuracy of the markers that you placed or the markers that you're using to communicate with your team on the ground, maybe those can directly affect your scoring. Or even I'm thinking there's a mode to this game where it could play out where you're not necessarily allowed to just, like, if you place markers, I think, in advance, then it becomes a little bit more static feeling, and it might be less fun. Whereas, say, if you didn't have like a God mode camera, but if you had to some way navigate the environment in real time and then radio into your guys on the ground about hey, look out to the right or whatever, especially if there's voice recognition or something, but some way to communicate to them only in real time. So you had to kind of react to both what your team was doing as they play out the heist and kind of remember it as you saw it. Perhaps there's different lighting conditions and stuff, so that makes it, harder to identify, or at night certain things are closed up or locked down in a way that maybe you weren't expecting. So that kind of creates not only an environment shift, but then you have a scenario where you have to react constantly to the changes in the environment based on what your team is doing and what you know to be the hazards, rather than kind of placing markers on the, I think he says, the snap map view here, the kind of zoomed out strategy layer view, which could feel a little bit more like, you're setting up dominoes and just waiting for them to fall down. I guess thinking about when you're going to case it, I guess you would start outside the building or something, right? Mm-hmm. Like all the way, and then go in and start looking for, what's the fail state for you? Is it just you didn't make any money, or you're caught immediately? How do you think you lose it?
Fail state is, you got detected, you spend too much time, the cops arrive and they shoot everybody. You get 0.
Everyone goes.
Like maybe it's like the objective, let's say you have a team of 5 people.
Yeah.
The objective is to get everybody to the car and everybody escape, but maybe you can be half successful and 2 make it out with part of the money. And
maybe you take that money and you could also do something of like you can build your sophistication of your operation based on how much money you have coming in from your
that's
heist.
cool. Yeah, and then you can hire new guys.
Yeah, or have multiple teams of guys. Yeah. So you're like, now you get into this whole layer where you're running multiple heists at once.
Yep.
I cased 5 joints. I'm going to have my guys go and then watch it play out. It's like turning this thing a little bit into, or thinking about it as the football manager heist simulator, where you're the logistics guy and things are playing out and this money is rolling in. And I personally always love to see mechanics where the money that you're bringing in can be used on useful stuff like hiring the guys, but also on just like completely ridiculous stuff. Like maybe you have a la Grand Theft Auto, a huge garage filled with cars, and you have an ever-increasing sort of headquarters that you and your gang can hang out in, and then you could build in a bunch of great side content where like you can actually talk to the criminals or influence them and do that sort of stuff within the kind of in between the mission stuff, because I think you want, in the games as a service sort of world, you want to be able to have something that someone can show off and be proud of, right? When they're making this great progress.
Yeah, GTA did some of that, right? They did you hire a helicopter pilot or something, and then you can decide whether you're going to get the crappy guy who's cheaper, or you're going to pay more, have a more reliable guy.
Oh yeah, and it's like each step of the way, depending on who you paid, something might go wrong. I remember doing a heist to GTA, and it was something like I got the crappy like motorcycle driver or whatever, so when I was going to get away, the thing managed to go awry and I lost a bunch of money. So I'm looking here, and it looks like he's talking about Doom Snap Map user interface. So I don't know if Tom means to say that like these levels are assembled by other people.
I think he's more thinking of the perspective where it's like Doom, you have this first person level, but then there's also this view where you zoom out for the level building, right? Like to see kind of like the schematic of the place. I think he's more talking about perspective, but that'd be interesting if you could set up missions for others to solve.
Right, or randomly generated
set traps.
Places. So two ways. One person is like designing the place to be like heist proof.
Yep.
And then the other person is going and designing the space.
Did you ever play Spy vs. Spy? Really old game.
I haven't played Spy vs.
2-player. It's based on the Mad characters, black and the white, like Bert Spy.
Yeah.
But like it was split screen, and you could set traps for the other player. Like you could put a bomb in something, and then you'd be like, if the guy didn't spot you do it, like you'd be like, ha ha! Like when you get him, you can see the effect. But,
so you could as the other player have the ability to watch someone place the bomb?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you paid attention, you'd know.
It's a split-screen game, right? Back in those days, we didn't play online yet.
Yeah. You could screen cheat, for sure.
Yeah, but so you had to kind of pay attention to your stuff, too, and their stuff.
So I like that. So one person could potentially build out a level, and maybe you even watch it get assembled. They have 5 minutes to make the place, or whatever, Snap style, and then you come in and you're like, all right, make sure, I want you to pay attention to over here. They spent a lot of time placing this thing. I wonder if there's like a bomb inside it or something.
Yeah, it would be really interesting.
Very cool. Well, Thomas here says he's calling this game Steal with Your Eyes. As in, look with your eyes, not with your hands. But he's open to better titles. Do you have a better title in mind?
I really like the word heist. The heist needs to be in there somewhere.
Heist.
Yeah.
I like the idea of, I don't know if this is just a Hollywood affectation or what, but like Case the Joint.
Yeah.
Although, can you put joint in a video game and still get sales?
Case the Joint, yeah.
Case the Joint.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that is our 3 ideas this week. As always, you can write into playwrightcast.com or playwrightcast@gmail.com. You can email us. And Per, thank you so much for doing this.
Thanks for having me on.
Is there any sort of plugs or anything you'd like to do?
Yeah, go to this website. It's called IGN. IGN.com.
Surely, but
type it into your browser. use your Netscape.
Yes, turn off ad blocker.
That's right. Turn off your ad blocker. I also I co-hosted in the interim when we were looking for a new Nintendo editor. I hosted the our weekly Nintendo podcast, NVC, Nintendo Voice Chat. It's an hour of talk about the latest in Switch and 3DS news. So check that out if you're not listening to it. And we found our Nintendo editor. So
that's great.
Philip is hosting the show, but I'm on there. I'm adding random garbage.
So he's taken over hosting duties.
That's right.
Oh my God.
I still add ridiculous, terrible discussions to the mix, and ancient history.
Like the Goemon series.
Look, I have not met many people who actually have played a Goemon game before, so it's cool to hear that you dig them.
I mean, Yeah, I just appreciate the history and the fact that any game I can tell you, you can tell me how it had 10 sequels that never released in the United States.
Yeah. There was a Goemon game on the DS, but like they kind of lost their way. By the way, the later titles. It's Super NES was its heyday, and then N64, and then it was kind of over, unfortunately. But maybe you're going to bring it back now, obviously.
Let's do it. We gave Nintendo 2 great ideas today, so it's free to use.
Konami, get on it.
Konami, get on it. Peer, thank you again. And listeners, remember, you can leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. That's the number one thing you can do to help the show and help spread the word. If you love IGN or you love Nintendo, hey, this is a great episode to share with a friend or send to someone who loves Metroid or the Goemon or just cool heist games. And remember, when you write in, you don't have to have exotic ideas. Instead, you can literally write in and say, I want to mash up game A and game B, like what we had done really this week. I also want to thank PROTODOME for the use of our theme song, Hello World, off of his album Blue Noise. It's really, really good. And we'll be excited for Ryan Heyman to return to us next week in our more traditional style of studio podcasting. And each week, we like to leave you with a little something to whet your palate and maybe get your ideas flowing. And in honor of Peer being here, I'm going to suggest Video Games Website Tycoon, where you have to review games and put out scores and listen to your community and do all that good stuff. So that does it for us this week. Thank you for listening, and we will see you next week. Bye.
Bye.